Now, one of Prime Minister Netanyahu's most notable legal supporters is Harvard Law School professor emeritus Alan Dershowitz. In fact, the premier even referenced the famed attorney in his courthouse remarks today.
One of the foremost legal scholars in the world, Professor Alan Dershowitz from Harvard University, said the following: Netanyahu's trial poses great danger to democracy and the rule of law. This is the first time in the history of any modern country that a man is being prosecuted for trying to gain positive media coverage.
And Professor Dershowitz joins us now. What's, I'm sure, quite flattering to hear the Prime Minister speak of you like that, Professor Dershowitz. But is it not a day Israelis can be proud of, that a prime minister was brought to trial just like any other citizen would be brought to trial if he went through an investigation and charges were brought against him?
If he had committed a crime, it would be a day that Israel should be proud of. It will go down in history as a day on which Israel should be deeply ashamed. Israel is the first country in modern history ever to put a political leader on trial for trying to get good media coverage or trying to eliminate negative media coverage. The Knesset would never in a million years pass a statute making it a crime to try to obtain good media coverage, because if they did, half of the members of the Knesset would be imprisoned. So if you want to try people on these offenses, 1,000, 2,000, 4,000, let the Knesset pass statutes. But what Israel's doing is using vague, open-ended, broad statutes in order to create new crimes that have never, ever been used in a democracy before. So yes, this case is unprecedented, but the important part of it is not it's unprecedented because the prime minister is on trial in Israel. It's unprecedented because the charges being brought against Netanyahu are not crimes.
Professor Dershowitz, let me ask you if
crimes.
Of course, we're talking about different cases. In the first case, 1000, the prime minister received expensive gifts from a wealthy business in America, then intervened to try to have that the U.S. Secretary of State extend a visa for that businessman. Is that not a crime, a case of fraud and breach of trust?
Not at all. Let me tell you why. They don't charge quid pro quo because there was no quid pro quo. And if you want to make it a crime, let the Knesset say anything up to 10,000 shekels is okay, but 10,001 shekels is not okay. But you can't have a statute which leaves it up to the prosecution to decide how much is too much. It gives them too much discretion. It allows for selective prosecution. If you want to make it a crime, and many states in the United States have made it a crime, to accept more than $10,000, $1,000, set a number. And then if the number is exceeded, that's the end of it. But you can't make it a crime to say he took too much, especially when there's no specific allegation that in exchange for the specific money, he did illegal acts A, B, C, and D. So no, 1,000 fails. And again, Israel should never have brought a criminal prosecution based on 1,000. 2,000 and 4,000 are different. I'm very familiar with Israeli law. I'm very familiar with these allegations, but Professor and none of the three of them survive analysis.
Professor Dershowitz, you say unprecedented for a prime minister to be prosecuted because he tried to influence media coverage. But Prime Minister Netanyahu deliberately took on the post of a communications minister to personally make decisions regarding regulatory issues in this arrangement with these two media figures. Isn't that a crime? If he wasn't going to commit a crime, why did he take on the post of communications minister?
Well, there has to be a crime. You can't charge somebody with motive. People take on positions all the time in order to achieve both personal and national goals. But it can't be a crime to seek positive or avoid negative media coverage. If the Knesset wants to make that a crime, let them take a vote. I predict if the Knesset took a vote on making it a crime to get positive media coverage, it would not get a single vote, not a single vote. So here's my challenge. Let the Knesset pass a law. Let the Knesset debate the issue of whether or not seeking media coverage, even changing a position, seeking a position if that could be proved, to get media coverage is a crime. The Knesset would vote no. And if the Knesset wouldn't pass such a law, How can a prosecutor create a crime?
Professor Dershowitz,
how can a judge impose a conviction on such a crime if the Knesset didn't pass it?
Professor Dershowitz, we're going to go for a brief break. I do want to stay with you. I do want to point out in this last election, the parties that supported giving Prime Minister immunity openly had said that failed to get a majority in the Knesset, in the Israeli parliament.
Well, what does that have to do with
the voters did have a...
What does that have to do with
well, we could...
I think he should win in the courthouse because, as I said, if the Knesset wouldn't pass a law, and the fact that they wouldn't give him immunity has nothing to do with it. If they wouldn't pass a law making it a crime specifically to take gifts above a certain amount, if they wouldn't pass a law making it a quid or a quo to accept or seek good media coverage, then the prosecutor and the judges can't make up crimes that the Knesset would refuse to enact as criminal laws.
Professor Dershowitz, there's been talk perhaps of a possible plea bargain deal. Maybe the Prime Minister accepts some of the two lesser charges in this case, which would be breach of trust and fraud, and in order to avoid being convicted under the bribery charge. I mean, what kind of approach on that question would you advise?
Well, I would never advise somebody who was innocent of crime to plead guilty. Sometimes you have to do it. In the United States, we impose 10 times the amount of punishment on somebody who pleads not guilty and is found guilty than somebody who makes a deal. But I think it would, myself, if you believe you're innocent, and I believe the Prime Minister is innocent, the idea of pleading guilty to something that was not a crime is not something I would ever recommend.
All right, Professor Alan Dershowitz, thank you for joining us here on The Rundown on I-24 News.
Thanks.